What's going on, everybody? My name is Tony Mendoza, and we are in the heart of the Gulch with Mr. Stephen Richards. How you doing today, buddy?
Doing well. How are you?
Man, I'm feeling very happy because not only are we just talking about the business that I'm so excited to talk about, it's more importantly your take on things. Yeah. So the way that we start every show is we always talking about what brings people to Nashville, because just everyone who is from Nashville originally, they don't have that story ahead. Everyone that moves to Nashville, they always, New York, LA, and we talk about everything that has to do with LA. But Stephen, you're actually from Nashville. What area of Nashville?
Brentwood.
Brentwood area.
Born and raised.
Oh man, so you have seen this town go from just a small town to...
That is a fact.
Oh man, so how's that feel?
I love it. A lot of people talk about people that are from here, and they're kind of upset with all the people moving here because everything's changing. And I was like, no, it's great. Where my shop is, I wasn't allowed to go to growing up at the Gulch. I used to live here, wasn't allowed to go to there growing up.
This place was actually, so in the heart of the Gulch was very much a up and coming neighborhood. Let's just put it that way. And when did it start seeing such a dramatic change?
Actually, when I was in college, because believe it or not, I sort of grew up in the Gulch. My dad, his company, he had a few warehouses where Kane Prime is, the Bohan Building.
Are you kidding me? Really?
So all growing up, I'd go to work with him summers. He and my mom, they started a company, and my dad told me when I was in college, he was like, hey, you remember the old Harvester Building? I forgot what the other name of the building was. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, now it's a restaurant. The other one's, this new restaurant group that's going in, putting in a bunch of, different style restaurants on that street. It's called M Street. And I always knew it as McGavick Street, which I bet nobody really knows that when they're talking about going to M Street. And I told him, I was like, that's impossible. I mean, that area, we had barbed wire fences around the properties, right across from the train tracks.
Because it is the train tracks. And everything that comes out of the train tracks at times can be kind of sketchy as well. So
exactly.
That is amazing. I had no idea about that. So I got a little applause that I bring in every once in a while. That's awesome. It's good to know that the backstory of just more or less the area that we're operating in. But one thing that really... We're going to talk about the hottie toddies in a minute, all right? And we're going to talk about Ole Miss.
There you go.
But because I went to Texas A&M, so we have a little bit of a rivalry within ourselves. But, you guys are always best dressed, best to impress. So that's one thing I got to say. So shout out to everyone who is watching that is from the awesome University of Mississippi. Now, when it comes down to Nashville, what is, we're just going to start off kind of easy right now. What is your favorite area to kind of go out, if you go out in Nashville at all?
The Gulch, honestly. I'm not just saying that. Yeah, rooftops, stay away of Broadway as much as possible.
I think we all do.
Which it's kind of like, Bourbon Street, anything that's real touristy. It's like when friends come in town, they always want to go to Broadway. It's like, all right, you have to. My deal is I don't go after dark. I'll go during the day, but other than that, I'm not looking forward to it.
It's you know what? During the summertime, it's a sunset city.
Yeah.
So when you really think about it, places like that just open up the W, and then you have LA Jackson right here, and it really just is. You get a different type of clientele. And clientele, just like in any business, really makes the difference.
Exactly.
So when it comes down to going to places in the Gulch, we're expecting a certain type of echelon of person that shows up. And of course, you have the good old bachelorettes and everything like that come in for a weekend, and they're all going crazy. Yeah. But the beauty of it is, you're absolutely right. I think some of the best restaurants and some of the best bar rooftop areas are in the heart of the Gulch, in my opinion. Now, we got to talk about when you went to college. So when you went to the University of Mississippi, Ole Miss, what was something you were studying in there?
Business management.
Business management. And wow, I'm pretty sure that you use a lot of that knowledge today, right?
Here and there.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different than it was when I was in college, but it definitely had a well-rounded foundation for me to get started.
And in that transition, did you realize at that point, because like I said, Ole Miss is dressed to impress. I mean, everyone looks spot on. And I mean, even from the tailgate, you guys got chandeliers in the tailgates. So, I mean, it is a nice area.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And that was something that kind of stuck out to me because all growing up, I never knew I wanted to go to Ole Miss. I was a big Tennessee fan.
Really?
Yeah. And then senior year of college, I went down with some friends that were going to Ole Miss. We went for the Auburn game, I think. This was back in 2008. And I just fell in love with the Grove, fell in love with the atmosphere. It's a really small town, but kind of a big college. When kids are in school, it doubles the population of the town.
Oh, absolutely. And it's such a small town too. It's not a huge town.
Not at all.
And it's not even that far away from Nashville. I think it's only about maybe 4 hours, if the most.
3.5 if you're not going the speed limit.
Which after you get to, once you can drive through Alabama like it's nothing. Seriously.
I've made it down to Oxford in a little bit less than 3.5, and definitely wasn't the right thing to do. But
what has been some of your most memorable experiences in college?
Oh gosh.
It's far back for everyone too, so don't worry.
Honestly, most of them came from the Grove.
Yeah.
I also bartended my last few years of college. That was a whole lot of fun, kind of being on the other end of things. Really kind of eye-opening to how people act and how you should treat people in the service industry. I wasn't big on school. I hated going to class, most like every other college student. I was in a fraternity, which was fun. It was great. Had a lot of friends through there. But honestly, I mean, just the atmosphere of Ole Miss, it's special. It's a place
it's electric.
That I could retire there. I mean, if it wasn't hot as hell in the summers.
Well, it's also Mississippi in the same way, right?
Yeah.
But now we're also talking about like one thing that has gotten you into fashion was before Mississippi. I mean, when was it? It was around, I'm assuming high schoolish.
Even earlier, probably.
Really?
I would say elementary school, middle school. Ever since I was little, I don't know what it was, but I kind of looked forward to wearing a suit or a little blazer, something to church. My dad, he pretty much put the How to Be a Gentleman Brooks Brothers book, shoved it down our throat from an early age, and it just kind of resonated with me. It's one thing for style that I never really had to try for. It's kind of like I just did it. I liked it. Other people might have liked it. Got compliments.
And it matches. It matches the personality.
Yeah.
And a shout out to the Brooks Brothers book that got you into it. That's pretty cool.
I'm pretty sure it's still in my bathroom somewhere.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Now, here's another thing. So I remember I have listened to a few of your interviews, and I remember you talking about the baggy era. We all remember the baggy era, 50 Cent in the club, and now everybody was in it. I think I even had a do-rag once, and I mean, it wasn't the best looking thing in the world, but it is what it is. You notice fashion trends pretty early. So even in your current role today, in your current company, you found out a fashion trend prior to ever that happening. So a little bit more, I would say more bespoke type fitting. So it just feels better. It looks cleaner, it looks sharper. And you got onto that wave a lot longer before a lot of people in the city, right?
Yeah, and it's something that America's kind of behind in the fashion trends, and we kind of get it 5-10 years later that it really starts hitting. And probably when I was later in college, right when I was getting out, that's not when baggy was popular, but it was just kind of on the end stage of it. And I think with how many guys are taking care of their bodies, a little bit more conscious about how they look, working out.
As I pull out my shirt so you don't see my beer belly.
That's why I wear a vest. But it's, they worked really hard in the gym, or they're kind of conscious about their weight and they wanted to show it off.
Absolutely.
And a lot of guys have said, I've told them, hey, not baggy's coming back, but something that's a little bit looser fitting, and they kind of fight it. And it's like, no, it's the same thing that happened when things were getting a little bit slimmer. Everyone fights it, and then it kind of catches on. And
the trend, all right, so here's a personal question I have. It's would you agree that the 70s, more of the style of the 70s, not necessarily everything from the 70s, but are coming back into fashion? And one of the reasons why I say that, so when you walked in, I was playing Bruno Mars. Bruno Mars's whole look from maybe 4 years ago, it's been becoming more and more trendy, 70s style. So we're talking longer buttons, right? So you're showing a little bit more of your chest out.
Longer collars, yeah.
Are you feeling the same way in the bespoke market?
Yes and no. It kind of depends on the style of suiting that it's going to be. Some people that always want something traditional, and then other ones that want to step outside the box. So when we have clients come in, it could be on both ends of the spectrum. It could be ones that are very fashion forward, something that's coming in style, which I say men's fashion's a revolving door.
Absolutely.
It just keeps going round and round and round. And what's coming up next is going to be a little bit higher waisted,
Yes, that is something that you definitely see trending right now on social media. It's the almost very slim, well, not slim, but it's baggy, but it has the
kind of tapers down.
Tapers down.
Yeah, and so it's kind of a mix between a few different eras right there. And for me, I've always told guys too, you have to have a certain body type to do certain
Pull
things.
it off.
And it's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just, it doesn't work on certain body types.
Absolutely.
Mine, I'm still trying to figure it out because I like the look. It's not something I would go full time. But again, that's probably what I said about when things were getting a little bit slimmer. And it's like, no, that's, those are, guys consider like skinny jeans. It's like, no, they're just tapered. They actually fit me.
Well, actually, that leads to another question I was thinking in my head. It's kind of like when you go on vacation. Is that when when you think about clients that go on vacations, go on trips, they actually take a little bit more risk on what they wear?
Yes, and that's actually something that I tell guys. Going to the grocery store. Put on something that you probably wouldn't wear to go out and just see if you're comfortable in it. You're probably not going to see anybody you know. But vacation, same thing. It's kind of when you can let your personality out, because anywhere you go, I mean, depending on where you're vacationing, you're not going to know anybody there. Nobody's going to judge you. Nobody's going to care. They don't know that you've never worn that before.
Absolutely.
And honestly, I would do that early on, kind of when things started getting a little bit slimmer, is that I would have to go to the grocery store. And I'd tell myself, just put something on that you want to wear, that you like, and see what happens. And I'd go out in public and it's like, I felt great.
And speaking of felt great, looking great, so one thing that I want to show the viewers, look, people told me to not dress up when it comes close to you, and so I just try to go the most casual I could, because I knew that you're going to look amazing, man. And that outfit right there, what is that, a three-piece? Three-piece looks fire, man. And I wish y'all could see the shoes, but I don't have a producer zoom down to the shoes, and I'm not going to have you kick your feet up. So you look great, my man.
Thank you.
But it all comes down to the brand, right? So the brand, and let's dive deeper. So now we're gonna go into the end of your time at Ole Miss, okay? Now, from that point on, I think you had that big decision, right? You had a big decision if you want to. I think you did actually work for your father, right? How long were you working for your father?
A little less than 3 years. It's a big family business. The only thing other than bartending that I ever did was work for my dad, summers and winters, ever since I probably age of 14 legally. Before then, it was just odd jobs around the warehouse. And it's the only thing I ever knew. It's the only thing that I grew up literally in the business. And my brother worked there. My sister actually is a few years older than me. She was working for a record label in Nashville. I started, and then about maybe a year and a half later, she started. And so for my dad, it's, you build this big company and all three of your kids are working there, your wife's there, your nephew's there. It's
family business.
Exactly. So it's kind of a dream of his, and again, I knew everything about the company. I loved working with my family, but kind of came to a tipping point. Just wasn't for me. And
just making sure that I'm correct, this type of business was actually in a way accounting, right? Physical, well, not accounting, but physical paper withholding or holding.
So it's document storage.
Yep.
Office records management. So
physical papers though.
Companies that have to store files off-site, boxes of files. If you can imagine Walmart times 2. And then about 1 million boxes in storage on shelves.
Oh, man.
They also had paper shredding. So when those legal documents were up for retention, you take them off the shelf, you shred them. They also did scanning, then digital storage. Now that people are starting to move away from paper a little bit, had a data vault. So everything that kind of revolved around security for your office.
Absolutely.
All the records off-site.
So I guess what was the conversation like when you wanted to go into your own venture, when you wanted to be a pure entrepreneur?
It was hard.
Yeah.
Very hard. It was one of those things where I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just kind of knew at that point it wasn't that. My dad encouraged me to take a drive down to South Georgia. It's one of our family friends. He said, and he actually owns a company like my dad's. And I think maybe my dad was trying to get me to go down there to he encouraged me to come back to the business. But I told my dad, I said, it's just not what I want to do. It's not for me. I love and respect them. They did everything right in raising us and bringing us into the company. We didn't have manager roles. Starting out, we were all in sales. You had to be revenue generating. Kind of had to work your way through, work from the bottom up. But when I went down to Georgia, he asked me a question. It was so simple. And he said, money wasn't an option. What would you do every day? Having to be a job, not just traveling the world, having fun. And I sat there, and literally the only thing that came to my mind was something in men's fashion. Originally, it was retail. And then I found out stay as far away from that as possible.
Oh, trust me, anyone who's had a real any type of job like that, and you realize really quickly that your freedom, and you see people come in on 4th of July, you see people come in on all the holidays that you just feel trapped when you're selling something like that. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But keep going.
Yeah, so one of my best friend from growing up, he was actually living on my couch at the time that this all happened, and I was on my way back, and he had actually worked for Tom James, which is a kind of the world's largest in custom clothing. He was working there in Houston, and then left, came back to Nashville, and we just got to talking on my ride back, and I told him, I was like, what if we opened up a retail store that kind of focused in custom clothing? And we probably talked, it's like a 7-hour drive.
Yeah, it was a talk on while you're driving, so your mind is really going. I mean, I've noticed that. I'm not sure if you still notice that today, not to cut your story off at all, but when you're driving or when you're in the shower, your mind is just going on, and you're able to think of all these different things for a business and branding.
That's honestly why I like taking trips alone. Same thing for flying. It's when I do my most thinking.
See, not for me. See, me is driving. If you're
driving definitely more than flying.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but it is. I mean, that windshield time, for something about it, especially just a long trip.
Exactly.
The only issue is like if you're the one driving, it's like there's certain times where you want to be looking something up, you want to be writing something down.
Oh, that's why you need your passenger. My passenger, my girlfriend, is the number one person who looks up anything on Google. I use Google when I'm driving more. There's an uptick with Google with me. Now flying, for example, though, I am such a nervous wreck on flying. That turbulence, I can't think of anything. I have to actually put my mind to watching a movie to focus. But so as you're driving, that 7-hour drive with your friend, you're starting to develop a business for both of y'all to get into, custom.
And we've, talked all the way back. As soon as I got back, it's like we hit the ground running. We still have this little black book that had all the ideas in it. And my dad's actually the one that taught me to do that, is these little just moleskin blank paper notebooks. And just start writing ideas down. Anything you have, thoughts, meetings. When I get done with you, it's like talk about things that, interesting ideas that we maybe had during our conversation. And it's so funny, this is almost 7 years ago, looking back at that notebook, and I'm like, my gosh, if my house was on fire, I'm going to collect everything of my personables, myself, for my girlfriend, my dog, those books. Other than that,
that's a fact, though, because I do the same thing.
They literally sit in my safe.
Really?
Fireproof safe.
Really?
Because I just do not want anything to happen to me. It's almost comical for some of them, too.
Well, no, it's not.
Well, no, comical looking back on it, it's like, wow, you were really just
throwing it out there.
There are no dumb ideas when it's by yourself.
That's a fact. And the craziest thing about it is that I have that exact same book. And I didn't know that someone who was older would say something like that for example, to you, saying just write it and just have it. It's what it does really is when I've looked into this, is that it gives you a tangible goal in a way. So if I wanted to, this idea that I have today was that simple thing. It was in the shower, thought about it. The moment I got out of the shower, I wrote it down on that sheet of paper. And then before you know it, you build a brand.
Exactly.
And that's where it starts out for. So shout out to those books, man. Those books are incredible.
I think I'm on my 6th or 7th one right now. And it's every day. I had a call with my marketing and PR company today, and it's just everything that we're talking about. It's new age, everything's digital. It's something about typing I don't really like. It's the physical, just writing it down,
Absolutely.
Drawing it out
with the pen that you like. If me, I'm not a big oily pen. I hate it.
That's got to be dry.
Yep, and it needs to be thin.
I was about to say my hands shake too much for me to do anything that's gonna, especially dragging it across. But I even have what the shop was gonna look like literally drew it out, and I'm by no means an artist.
That is literally what I do. That is crazy.
I wanted to sit there and cut it out of the book and frame it and put it on the wall and be like, this was the original idea.
I think you should. I mean, you are successful enough where that should be actually a thing. I think that is a motivational factor, is that when you go to your office, when you go to your store, when you go to your storefront, the first thing they see is, you know what, just so you know that it started right there.
It's even dated sometime in 2015 or 16.
That's sick. I love that, man.
Kind of the same thing. When I first got this started, wasn't making any money. I didn't have another job. I drove Uber for a year and a half, and I was so embarrassed about driving Uber that I wouldn't put the sticker. I'd tape the sticker on my windshield, because it's like, if I ever like got in the car with friends, it's like I'd take it down. It's like, I don't drive Uber. I'm not. In the beginning, I was like, I'm trying to start this company. I look like a failure because I'm driving Uber, and I was like, Uber is the greatest thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah, it gives you your freedom. It gives you your freedom. You pick your own hours.
The freedom was the number one thing, is because I needed supplemental income. I mean,
Absolutely.
This was in the beginning, first year or so, it wasn't enough to keep the lights on. And it's like, all right, what can I do that I can literally start and stop whenever I wanted to? I thought about going back into bartending, but I was like, I feel like if I do that, I'm never going to get out of it. But it was definitely something that helped me, because it's like, I would drive early morning. I'd wake up at like 4, drive the airport runs. Then from like 8 until about 6, I would concentrate on work, and then after that it's like I drive till midnight. And granted, the days were long, but doing what I loved, it's like it didn't feel like a job. Driving for Uber did. And then I got to a certain point where I'm like, all right, I'm sick of driving Uber. This is just too much. I don't make that much money. It's enough to get by, but you got to start getting a little bit more strategic with how you're growing the business, because this isn't going to cut it. You can't do this for too much longer.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of one of those things where I kept that Uber sticker that I never actually put on my car, and it's actually framed in my office.
I love that you keep these mental reminders. I think that is so important. Now let's talk a little bit about your routine. So one thing that's amazing about your routine is the time you get up. You get up at 5 o'clock every day?
4:30.
Oh man, well, you're stronger than I.
I don't know if that warrants an applause. It never gets easier. I've been doing it for 3 years now. And my best friend that I was talking about earlier, that started the company with me, he actually won't go into that story, but he ventured out and got into personal training. And so for the past, probably 4 years, I've been working out with him every morning. And same thing every morning. Alarm goes off, and I say a 4-letter word in my head. But I'm glad I do it, because when I get up, work out, I wouldn't do it after work, because I don't really have an after work. It's never like a set time. So for him, it's kind of nice, because it's the first one of the day, kind of gets it knocked out, 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. Go home, shower, and that's when I start my day. Do
you brainstorm early and kind of write it out and just make everything happen?
I prefer, so the 2 people that work with me, they don't come in until 9. I love having 3 hours to just myself.
Exactly.
They think it's probably weird, and my dad always thought it was weird when I worked for him, because in my office, it's like I don't have music playing. I don't have anything. It is just silent.
Man, we're like the same person.
Well, and it's when they come in, then I kind of feel it's weird. I'm like, all right, maybe we should turn the speaker on,
just
the TV on. Yeah, something in the background.
But your mind is always going. That's why, because you're listening to your mind. And I think the most successful entrepreneurs are able to have dialogue within their head, and it's almost like it's a trait where you don't ever feel like you're doing enough. That 3 hours that is so crucial in our day of not hearing anything, it's because we're talking to ourselves. We're saying, what can we do better? How we can do better. So am I right on the same terms?
Exactly right. And I don't know. I mean, when they get there, it's like I love it, because then we can start our day and figure everything out. But leading up until then, it's one of those things where it's like, all right, I need time, especially we don't really have appointments starting until about 10 or 11. Sometimes if it's a busy week, we'll have to pack them in early, starting at 9, sometimes even 8. And it's always the thing where I was like, I want my hours of work. I don't want to have to start right at 8, because then it's going to throw off my process. And I'm very process oriented.
The more routine you become, the less wiggle room you have for others.
Yeah.
But it gets you out of your comfort zone, and it makes you act fast.
Oh, yeah.
So when you have a client list from 9 in the morning till what time do you guys close it up? 6?
Typically, it's kind of funny. It depends on when my girlfriend gets off work, because she's a pediatric ER nurse.
Mine too.
Yeah,
so they're out and about hard, man. They're dealing with it.
Well, she works till 7, so that's Otherwise, I'd probably work till midnight, but she makes me come home. So 7 o'clock, some days, my last appointment would probably be 5. Used to, we'd blame not having later appointments because of the lighting in the shop until we moved it up to the loft, and then we got concentrated lighting, so it's all natural light. But yeah, typically about 9 until 5:30.
Here's another question. So do you find that value of those 3 hours in the beginning of the day, not being with anyone, and almost comforting?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, right?
Yeah.
Where it's just comforting to come to your place of business, sit down, crank it out, answer those emails, and produce what you need to produce before people start coming in. And then it's kind of like introvert, extrovert, right? So you get to be introverted for the first 3 hours. And then when they come in, turn it on, and then you're dead by like 8 o'clock at night, right?
Yep, and that's exactly right. And sometimes we'll have like an early 9 a.m. appointment for like a new fitting.
Yes.
And that's something that I don't really love to have, but if it accommodates their schedule or if they're in town only for a couple days, we will. And it's like I'll realize starting about 4 o'clock, I'm like, wow, my day kind of feels like it's almost over, but it's really the same day as every day, except I started appointments earlier.
Yeah, well,
I didn't have the time to like work on everything I typically do, and I do want to get out of that comfort zone because you don't want to be surprised and then you don't do what you're supposed to do because you're thrown off track.
Well, let's get out. First of all, we had a great mindset thing right there. That was pretty awesome. We could have kept going for a while for that, but let's talk about getting people out of the comfort zone, and let's talk about the business, right? So when it comes to bespoke, right, and when it comes to one for one, and just you're taking the measurements, you're figuring out the quirks of everyone, right? Some people slouch, some people don't, but then it comes down to the clients. Sometimes you got to push them to go outside of their comfort zone. So tell me about a time when you had a client that had always had their suits one way and they were very comfortable at one way, but it was time for you to kind of push and nudge like, yo, we're getting a little slimmer now. We're starting to change the pace here.
It's worked both ways. I tried to be a little bit more discreet about it and wouldn't tell them that I was going to change something, and then it came in and they were furious. And it is somebody that's a little bit older might prefer things a little bit, I don't want to say baggy, just looser.
Square?
Sure.
Okay.
It's one of those things where they look at me and they look and see how my suits fit and they're like, I can't pull that off. And it's like, well, that's a mindset.
You start small, right?
Well, exactly. It doesn't have to go from an extreme. So I've had some guys that are, younger, early 40s, not in the older generation that kind of was used to the 90s style. And they just wear everything big and baggy, but they're kind of tall and slim. And you kind of have to wean them off of it. You don't want to go from an extreme, because I remember the first time I ever had something custom made for me was a guy here in Nashville. He's a good friend of my dad's. I call him Uncle Ted. Still friends with him.
Shout out to Uncle Ted.
I was in college when I had the shirt made for me, and that's back Brooks Brothers. Everything was big and baggy.
Yes.
That's all we wore.
Very much brighter colors, right?
Yep. And I remember he shipped me the shirts because I got them for Christmas for my dad. There were 2 shirts, shipped them to me. And I called him and said, Uncle Ted, these shirts are way too tight. Like something went wrong.
Yeah.
And he laughed and he said, wear them a few times. Wore them a few times. And I was like,
you started getting compliments, didn't you?
And I was like, nothing else in my closet fits right now. And that was, it honestly took an expert telling me that just give it some time. And so guys will come in. I always ask them to bring their best fitting suit if they have one. A lot of them don't because they think they're like embarrassed about it. They're like, this is my first time buying something custom. It's, it's not even worth going off of my old suit. And I was like, we've all been there. The Josue Bank, buy one, get equity in the company. It's something that I don't fault anybody for it. And when they bring it in, it fits big and baggy. And I'll say, what's wrong with the fit? And they'll say, well, can't you see? And I was like, well, yeah, but I just want to know, because certain people have certain preferences, depending on age too. And I'll tweak some things. And when it comes in, they might say like, oh, the armhole kind of feels a little tight right here. Same thing that Uncle Ted told me. Just wear it a few times. If you're still uncomfortable or if it still bothers you, we'll change it.
Now I can take this a couple of ways, but I want to talk about mentorship. And I want to talk about how important it was, or if you had that mentor, if you had that person of influence that helped you guide along this journey to make your own suits, and your own look.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it is. It's not just suits. It's not just bespoke. It is your name on the business, and it's your own look and it's your own style, which is super important.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Johnny McCutcheon down in Athens, Georgia.
You know what I'm going to do. Shout out to Johnny.
Yeah. So one of my good friends in Nashville, I told him that I was trying to start this company, and he said, I used to work in insurance, and the guy that was, I think, his boss, he left insurance to start his own custom clothing company because a lot of people in insurance had to wear suits. So you buy suits. He just fell in love with it and connected us, I think via text or email, and ended up talking to him, went down to Atlanta to meet with him because he sold a lot in Atlanta.
Atlanta's a good looking city.
It is. And immediately when he walked through the door, I think we had drinks at a bar. He walked through the door and I'm like, oh, wow, like he's dressed up. And I'm just wearing a jacket and slacks. And I thought I was dressed up. The guy comes in, 3-piece suit, just to the nines. And the way he carried himself, the way he talked about, he was showing us the fabrics and everything. And it got me excited about it. And I was like, see, that's what I want. And starting out, I mean, every question I had, Johnny answered. And still to this day, I credit pretty much everything getting brought into the industry was solely from him.
Really?
And from there, it kind of leaked on to, and then I'd start meeting other people in the industry. And that's what's kind of nice about it too, is because a lot of the companies across the country, we don't compete. We can all sell in each other's markets.
It's not about your clientele list that you have, which you have a crazy track record of the people that are your clients. But more importantly, it's what you're able to produce for them. I think that's the most important thing, and that's the one thing that I want to feature on the show today. But, we have to ask, so what are some of your most memorable clients? I have to ask it.
There's a lot. The first one that ever taught me to not judge a book by its cover, this is the week I closed on my shop, and this guy emailed in through the website, said, hey, I'm getting married, but I live out in, I think it was Goodlettsville. It was about 45 minutes away.
45 minutes away.
And drove to his house. I already didn't want to do it. I was like, I just got a shop. I shouldn't have to be driving to somewhere. I pull up and it's a double wide trailer.
Okay.
And I was like, I don't think he looked at the prices on the website. I don't think he understands what he's about to get into. Sure enough, the guy answers his door. He's 6'7", 180 pounds, just as tall and thin as can be. Didn't have all his teeth. Was wearing a Canadian tuxedo, jeans up top, down low, had a mullet. I'm sitting there and I was like, it's a Saturday at like 3:00. I was like, this is the last thing I want to do right now. I go in, I asked him if he had his best pair of fitting, suit pants or slacks, and he comes out and they're khakis he used to wear when he worked at Wendy's.
Oh gosh.
And the grease stains all over them. They were black. Started measuring them and I started getting to know him. And I was like, this guy's actually kind of funny. He's pretty cool. We sit down and start looking at fabrics, and at the time, this was probably 5 years ago, it was a big sale for me. Okay. And I sat there and it was $2,500. He had a suit, a couple shirts, I think something else. And where he's sitting there paying, I'm about to leave, and I was like, so do you have any plans tonight? Because this is for his wedding. And I was like, do you have any plans tonight? He's like, yeah, we're actually coming to Nashville. We've got dinner at reservations at Cane Prime. I was like, oh, that's cool. And I was like,
a great steak restaurant that is right in the Gulch.
There you go.
There you go.
And I said, was there like a special occasion? He's like, no, my fiance and I, we go into Nashville every Saturday night, have a go and eat at a different restaurant. We're big foodies.
You're building this up. I got to know now.
Well, it's like Nashville is just kind of like one of those places that have a bunch of new restaurants, and we love it. And
we love to eat here. Yeah,
and it was one of those things where it's like I pulled up and I'm like, immediately when I saw him, I'm like, this is not my clientele, and I enjoyed talking to him, hanging out with him, designing everything. He had so much fun with the process too. His first time ever getting. I think that's the most important
part, right? That's the most important part. If you're paying a certain number for your outfit and for what especially if you have a wedding or a big engagement, I think it's very important to have that rapport with somebody, get to know that person, and that's what you do really well, is you establish a relationship outside of just, obviously making a one-of-one custom suit.
Yeah, and that's honestly from that point on, I realized it's like, all right, I don't care if they're an entry-level client or the ones that spend the most money. I've got some clients that are my best clients money-wise and what the revenue it brings me, but they're not my favorite clients.
And I'm guessing like NFL and big guys, more or less.
Yeah, I mean, it's hit or miss in some areas. And some people just, I mean, they buy a lot, but they don't care about it. It's not the ones that have to wear it if they're a lawyer or something in financial to where it's like, oh, I've got to wear a suit every day.
It's the guy that wears Birkenstocks on a guy that looks amazing. So shout out to that. Yeah. All right. Well, before we lose time, because honestly, we could have a conversation for a while. I can already feel it. But we do definitely got to talk about, I have a section in here called crowd noise. I have 2 questions, and those questions just answer to your best ability. Some are easy, some are not. And I just want you to talk to some of the fans that have submitted questions to you. All right, let's do it.
Hey, Steven, what does a successful day look like for you?
A successful day. Honestly, doing more than I did the day before. Monetarily, I've left some days to where I made a lot of money that day and I didn't really feel like a success. And then other days where it's, things don't go well, but we handle problems and figure things out and, reach a certain amount of people in positive ways. It's crazy what money doesn't really matter in certain situations to where a successful day, honestly, is just doing more than you did yesterday. I excel when seeing the numbers go up, whether that's revenue, whether that's suits sold, clients reached, even the amount of inquiries that come through our website. So every time I see that it grows, and I've got sales goals and all that, but...
Well, you got to. I mean, you got to keep the lights on, right?
And it's not one of those things where... like right now we're ahead of schedule, which is great, but you can never get comfortable. And I don't even like to know that I'm ahead of schedule of what my sales goal is for the year.
You actually had to get an accountant, right?
That is correct. I hired a business coach almost 2 years ago. Probably the greatest thing I ever did. Yeah. I know what my strengths are, and I know what all my weaknesses are, and I don't want to touch my weaknesses.
Give me one weakness.
Finance. I could have a lot of money and I don't really know it because it's like I don't know what cash is going in, cash is going out. And so he hired me a bookkeeper. Because I've got my CPA, my bookkeeper, him.
A team, quote unquote.
Yeah. And I realized it's like I could sit here and try to do everything myself. I could do my taxes on my own. They probably would not be right. I'm not one of those do-it-yourself type people.
You're realistic.
Yeah. And I know that what my time's valued at, and it is not sitting there trying to crunch numbers that I'm going to fail at over and over and over again. And something that could cost me more money by not doing it correctly,
Absolutely.
I'm not going to even try it. I don't care.
That's super important too, especially from the example of taxes, right? You could mess that up and, it costs you more later on.
Yeah.
Now, let's go on to the second question. Sorry, I was going offhand there.
No, you're good.
So let's go to the second question. It's a long one.
Steven, it's Danny Rice. So I have a 2-part question here. We live in a day and age where social media can take a basement startup to a multi-million-dollar company, but you're in a business where referrals are worth their weight in gold. You obviously have some high-profile clientele, which is an obvious testament to the quality of work that you do and usually comes by word of mouth. Would you say that you've seen your business grow more from referrals or more from social media? And number 2, what is your favorite article of clothing or accessory that can make a good outfit great?
My God, Danny, what was that?
Exactly, right? When I heard it too, I was like,
ADD. How did you know Danny?
How do I know Danny? So
I was thinking about Danny earlier for one of your questions, and I was thinking about bringing him up, talking about becoming like friends. He's like my social media friend through the industry now. My client turned into the guy that I always send funny videos to.
My boy Danny Rice, man. So I met Danny. I met Danny at a bourbon outing, and from there we realized that we're both Latino. I went to his wedding. Yeah. And Danny, I also know from working. That I may not work for, so don't worry about that. Actually, I'm gonna bleep that out. But I know him from a company that we work for. He doesn't talk like that. But that was a long ass question, Danny, and I was
waiting for like a punchline of a funny thing to say.
That was a long
question. That was a serious question.
Right,
I got it.
Yeah, you got it. All right.
No, I already forgot what the first part was.
I know it was.
My favorite article of clothing was the second one. That's all I got.
Okay.
What was the first one?
The first one was how important is social media in your business?
And that versus referrals.
Exactly. And then he went off the deep end with what's your favorite article of clothing? Come on, Danny.
Damn it, Danny. Referrals are huge. Social media is also huge. I hate social media.
Really?
I do.
You're actually pretty good at it, man.
Well, social media just has you.
It takes your time. It takes your time. Going back to the 3 hours early in the day.
Well,
and
you're constantly chasing something that a social media company is trying to make you do. And it's kind of like with Reels. It's like I love posting photos and maybe occasional video. Then it's like Reels. If you don't post Reels, you're not going to be on top of the list for everything for the algorithm.
Why are we doing this? Exactly, I know.
But it's one of those things where I didn't want to come away from, gosh, in 6 years. I mean, granted, Instagram following has grown a lot.
Yes, it has.
I've been blessed, and it's one of those things where I'm thankfully in an industry that it's an attractive thing to post about. To Danny's question, referrals I always love the most because that means somebody really was excited about what they purchased enough to tell somebody else to refer. Social media could be just vanity. Nobody knows if I actually do well at what I do.
Exactly.
The suits look nice, but I could be a terrible business person. I could just be stealing their money. But referrals, it's a direct one-on-one. Social media probably gets me more, but referrals, direct referrals, especially from clients, is something that I appreciate a lot.
An entrepreneur's dream is a referral. And just for the people to know what we're talking about this guy named Danny Rice. He's a great bald man. And what I want you guys to see, I'm going to post this picture right here. 1, 2, 3. That is Danny Rice's amazing wedding outfit that you were able to put together. That thing is stunning, man.
He pulled it off well.
He did, right? And then he had all the nice pictures.
I think it was Pierce Brosnan, whatever the picture that he brought in, whoever it was.
You need to put that up in your wall, man.
When he said, he's like, do you have this color? And he actually called in originally, and he was asking for the specific color of velvet. And my assistant at the time, she took the call, and she's like, I think we might have it. And we ended up finding one of the books, and we did. And Danny came by, and he was kind of in a pinch because it was right before his wedding.
Yep.
And we ended up having the color, came in. He was great. But it was, to your point, talking about memorable clients. It's like, Danny, it's like we literally probably send 15 funny videos to each other a day.
I think he sends you the same ones he sends me, man.
Well, now I feel like I'm being cheated on.
Anyway, so let me stop there. He did ask another, what is your favorite fabric?
Favorite fabric or article of clothing?
Article of clothing or fabric.
Fabric it's called tonic wool.
Tonic wool.
From Dorme. It is, in my opinion, indestructible. It's got natural stretch. It's real breathable. Basically can't wrinkle it. It's perfect for travel. Holds its shape. I love it.
Well, out of respect to that.
And article of clothing. Can I change this?
Yeah.
Can I do that?
Yeah,
whatever, Danny.
It's Danny's. Do whatever you want.
I have talked about like my favorite suits that I've had in the past.
Yeah.
That made for myself. Neither of my two favorites are suits, which is kind of ironic.
What are they?
One's an overcoat.
That's fire, though.
One is a bomber jacket.
The overcoat's the wave during the cold times, but the bomber jacket. Talk a little bit about the bomber jacket.
The bomber jacket was actually it's like a silk wool blend. When we started doing bombers, I'm like, we don't really have bomber material. Like anytime, and probably have 15 bomber jackets in my closet that I did not, make. And I'm sitting there thinking, I was like, we don't really have that kind of material. This is like luxury suiting. And then randomly came across one fabric, and I was like, you know what, that might actually, and I made it for a suit for somebody. I was like, that could actually be pretty cool. And sure enough, it ended up being my favorite thing single-handedly. And I never get to wear it because it's kind of loud in the color, so it's like people would always notice if I'm wearing it. But that and this one overcoat, which is like a mandarin collar on it, just kind of different. Mm-hmm. I wear it more with jeans and like a Henley than I do dress-wise. But
well, the articles that you have been on. Don, have you been on part of the Tennessean yet?
Tennessean, yes.
Amazing.
Business Journal, yes. Locally, there's been a lot.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes, I mean, Vanity Fair, Sports Illustrated. It's fun. It's one of those things where when it happens, it's like, oh, it's cool.
Yeah.
It kind of, you settle on it, and then you look back on it, it's like, that was, and I do,
You're always trying to outdo yourself.
Well, I wouldn't say it's like vain, but it's like we have like a wall going up the staircase to the loft, and it's like all framed articles. I got that from my dad. It's like anything that he ever was published in, he'd frame it. And it's just kind of cool to like look back on things, and it's like for when I did To His Draft Suit, and it kind of blew up then. It's like the Sports Illustrated article and a few other things. It's fun to look back on. It's like an accomplishment, but not, it's like a trophy.
Yes, but in reality, it's because you do good work.
I was about to say, as long as it's for the right reasons.
You do good work. And now here's the thing. We got a couple minutes left. When you see a competitor or when you see someone who's not necessarily a competitor in this city, but when you see them create something really great, in your mind, that really fires your motor to do something better next time.
Yes. And it also gives me ideas. And it's one of those things where style is, I don't think many things in style are original. It's
all subjective.
You've collected certain things that you've put together in your head, whether it be from somebody else. You can create your own things.
But it's inspiration what
really drives us. It's inspiration, and that's why some of my biggest competitors are some of my biggest inspirations. And it's one of those things. It's one of those things where, honestly, I love when somebody outdoes me on something, or if they have a big name client, because it's like, all right, I'm not in first place.
But it helps, though.
You got to keep going.
It helps, and I think that is that's the beauty of it. All right, so I want to give you some time to plug whatever you want to plug at the end. But so what we do here is we do something called Walk the Line, and that is when we go to your location and we film behind the scenes so people can see what exactly you do. And that's what I think makes us different here at the Heart of the Gulch. So if I can, I want you to look in directly to that camera right there, and all you got to say is, hi, I'm Stephen Richard, and this is how I walk the line.
Hi, I'm Stephen Richards, and this is how I walk the line. Welcome into Richards Bespoke. We're going to give you a little tour today.
How long have you been here?
We have been in this location for a little over 4 years now. Started out, this was actually a live-work unit, so I used to live up in that loft up there, and then downstairs was a kitchen. And after about a little less than a year, I started hiring people on and realized that I couldn't share a bathroom and a fridge anymore. I've definitely seen this neighborhood grow. Used to, I didn't have to worry about a parking spot, but now with all the construction going on, all the buildings, I think we've got 200 square feet of office space, 200,000 square feet of office space next door going in. We've got a few apartment complexes around the corner. Hopefully going to get a few more food options in the neighborhood because that's something that we're lacking. Yes, we will space out the racks to either be, like this is all one client. So we do that because then we don't have to go look for it. We try to keep them together, but we also try to keep bolder patterns, brighter colors, kind of in the eye, so maybe at the front. That's one of our NFL guys. It's just a fun color, it's a fun pattern for the jacket, but then in case we didn't like the shorts. But this was something to where he saw a picture, I think on Instagram. He shot it to me and he said, hey, I'd love to have a more casual look. So we made him a pair of shorts, so that way he's got the best of both. If he wants to wear the shorts, he can wear the shorts. If he wants to make it a little bit more formal, but I don't think you're gonna make this suit formal. That is the easiest thing to do because I just talked about this about an hour ago. This is one of my favorite clients. He actually owns a distillery across the street. I just love this white stripe. Originally I was going to do it for myself as a jacket, and he dresses bold. He always wears three-piece. I love it. He has so much fun with the designing process. Little poker lining, which all the linings, you get to pick that out. It's fun because most guys will pick something for the color of the suit that they're designing. The couch, when I first purchased the unit and started moving in, the first thing I wanted to do was to get this couch. I could not afford this couch. So I ended up buying two cheap ones. I think that I paid $400 a piece for, and we had like a little L shape right here. Those couches weighed about 100 pounds each. If you sat in it, it just scooted across the ground. So after I started selling a little bit more, making a little bit more money, I said my first big purchase is going to be this couch. My dad came in here a couple weeks ago to drop something off to me, and he walks in, he kind of looks around, he goes, wow, he goes, this place has really come a long way, and he's seen it from the very beginning. So these, all our client files, which my dad, growing up, long story short, my dad and my cousin and my mom started a office records management company. So they stored files off-site for companies that would outgrow filing cabinets. And we actually moved the filing cabinet out last week, which is kind of bittersweet because I filled up my first filing cabinet. And I realized it's like, this is why my dad's company existed, so that people can store their records off-site. I still do everything by paper. I'm old school. All right, now we're gonna head upstairs, check out the design loft, which is my favorite area. So anytime that we've been featured in magazines, newspapers, anything published, we framed it. That's something I got from my dad growing up. Anytime his company was featured in something, he'd like to frame it. And it's just something nice to have on the wall to kind of walk up the stairs. A little decor, the custom lining we did for his draft suit a couple years ago. Yeah, Patrick. Some wedding stuff that we've done. So this is when I first moved in. The Tennessean came by and did a feature on these live work units. And so that's one of those couches. The other one's behind that wall. Didn't have any hanging racks up. That's a little temporary rack that I think I bought from Target. That's where the little tiny mirror was. The bar wasn't even built yet. That's the wall, so you'll see in a second where we expanded the loft out. It used to just be a partitioner wall right there. So this is our design loft. Once clients get measured downstairs and we go over what they're looking for, then we come up here and do all the designing. I kind of like bartender. We'll have them sit down, go over everything that they're looking for. Picking out fabrics, say they're coming in for a wedding, they want to design something like a blue suit. You know, I'll start pulling out different blue fabrics that I think they might like. From there, we pick out lining on the inside of the jacket, buttons, buttonhole colors, all the different details in here. But all of these books that you see, these are all of our fabric books. We carry about 10 different fabric mills, closely work with about 5 of them. Other ones are just kind of used for one-offs or things that might be a little bit more unique that we're looking for. I think I started out with 5 or 6 fabric books.
Well, speaking of fabric books, you know that means that we have to see inside one.
Oh, of course. Let's see, some of my favorites. Some guys like to know that they're going to get the last of that stock because then nobody's ever going to have it again. But then others just, you know, want to make sure that what they're getting is not something that everybody else has. So if it's something that's been there for a while. This is one of my favorite books for color, just different patterns.
Because I didn't even know there was this many variations.
Oh yeah, way more, but I didn't have enough space for them. Honestly, the 3 that we used the most, 125 degree, butterfly widespread, English spread. That one's probably the most. This is the only one that I ever wear. I just like it because when I'm not wearing a tie, it's got 2 buttons on the side, so it's a little bit different. And that's a popular one if you're only wearing a tie. But yeah, it depends on the generation, demographic, who's coming in. Some guys are maybe a little bit older, they like the button-down collar. I have nothing against that. I would say the beauty about custom, you're the one picking it out. You know, you don't have to follow trends if you don't want to. If it's what you feel most comfortable in, I'm not going to talk you out of it.
Most of your clients, though, who can afford to have a bespoke suit, obviously are traveling a lot more than the average Joe. So we're talking when they do get an overcoat, it's probably because they're in a cold area more of the time.
It's one of the reasons that I have so many overcoats is because I go to New York, Chicago, cold weather cities that you are walking multiple blocks, whereas in Nashville you might be getting out of your car and going straight to your office. It's more necessary, and a lot of my fabrics that I have are for other cities because I do travel a lot, and a lot of my clients do travel, so it makes it easier for them because they say that they could be in Southern California on a Tuesday and then up in New York on a Friday, and it's cold time of the year, so they're going to be in tropical, then they're going to be in the cold. So everything in between, especially with a lot of our NFL clients, because they might be, it might be wintertime where they live and they play, but then they're going to play an away game that's in somewhere it's a little bit more warm weather. So always just trying to stay current with climates and where they're going. And this is like my project table. Anytime I'm working on, a client's order that I've got to pick everything out for them. I'll typically lay certain things out, figure out what colors, patterns I'm going to go with. Right now it's a little messy because the three of us are working up here. That's now my desk area that I had my buddy build. Got a few monitors up there, just a little bit better workspace. Laying it out to be the most comfortable thing it can be when you come in, from the sense that we have the smell that right when you walk in the door that hits you, from having the bar, from having drinks for people, waters, coffee. We want this to be an experience. So if you're interested in booking an appointment, you can either go online to our website, click the schedule an appointment button, you can call in, DM us on Instagram, let us know what you're looking for, what you're interested in. If you have an event coming up that you want to design that special suit for, we can make it happen.